to the Meta Quest halftime.
Oh, what a first half we had in Game 1, all tied in Boston at 61. Stephen A. Smith, Jalen Rose, I'm Mike Greenberg. The early game today was quite the opposite of this. No contest whatsoever in Game 1 between the Hawks and the Heat, and Stephen A. Miami just stifling Trae Young all day long.
Without question. I mean, obviously he played the play-in game against Cleveland. In less than 48 hours, he had to come back here and play against the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. And the Miami Heat, exceptionally well coached with an arsenal. We're ready for him. But Duncan Robinson was the story of this game, hitting 9 of 10 shots, 8 of 9 from three-point range, finishing with 27 points. What I love about this most, Greedy, is that this is Trae Young we're talking about. He will not take this lightly. He will respond.
The player development of the Miami Heat strikes again. You have Strus and Vincent and Duncan Robinson, basically undrafted players that Eric Spoelstra turned into rotation players. You have your stars like Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo, your consistent ones. And then you bring in a champion like Kyle Lowry and Morris, and then you bring in Tucker. So the Miami Heat, who've been the best team in the East all season, have a great opportunity to have a short series.
So that one was one-sided. Our game is as close as can be. 17 lead changes, tied at 61. Kyrie Irving, absolutely sensational. We'll come back with insight into Game 1 in Boston next.
NBA Countdown, presented by Chime.
Counting it down to the Nets and Celtics Game 1, but Jalen, you know what time it is. It is time for DraftKings predictions. So far, you're 5-4 through 3 rounds. Let's see how we do today. Will Jason Tatum score 30 or more points?
Jason Tatum is a certified bucket, and there's a period of time when he played against the Nets this year. They had a 54-point game. He definitely scores 30 today.
Okay, next up is Kevin Durant. Now we're going to combine his numbers. Will he have 45 or more combined points, rebounds, and assists?
So I'm going to take you deeper in the box score. Kevin Durant has been masterful at distributing the basketball lately. He does get rebounds consistently, and he's going to score 30 points. So absolutely he'll have, in my mind, at least 15 rebounds and assists combined. He goes over.
One more. How about the total of this game? Will the teams combine for 224 or more points?
Celtics #1 defense since January 1st. The Nets don't play defense at all. It has to be a combination of the two. So I go under on this one.
So says Jalen. Again, he's 5-4 through 3 rounds. And DraftKings Sportsbook is an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Today only, basketball fans can get a risk-free bet on a same-game parlay. Get up to $10 in free bets back if your bet doesn't win. Use code SPLASH when you sign up. Meanwhile, gentlemen, we spent an entire week consternating over the Philadelphia 76ers, and then they went out and had a dominating performance yesterday. So, Jalen, have we changed our mind? Have we lost our concern? How deep a run is this team ready to make?
I lost my concern that this will be a close series that goes 7. Start with Joel Embiid's utter dominance. And it wasn't just about the numbers yesterday. It was about the attention that he was able to garner. Tobias Harris looked terrific in yesterday's game. James Harden had 14 assists. Maxey was just outstanding, game-changing performance with 38 points. And as you look at the Raptors, the war of attrition, they're already injured. They have so many players that are dealing with injury issues. The Philadelphia 76ers now see a path of beating possibly Miami in the second round and getting themselves closer towards the Eastern Conference Finals, something that has eluded Joel Embiid early in his career.
Stephen A., all well?
Well, listen, it should be because, I mean, when you've got a situation where Scotty Barnes is injured along with a couple of other players like Thaddeus Young and others, the fact of the matter is that the Philadelphia 76ers, the path is being paved for them. And then Maxey shows up and he drops 38. Tobias Harris shows up and he drops 26. What was the issue coming into the playoffs? It was supposed to be about Embiid and Harden because you didn't see that level of production from a Tobias Harris, even though Maxey obviously has played well. What we're witnessing from him is a guy that has stepped up and has let us all know this is a brother to be reckoned with. Okay, he can play off the ball. Harden is finding him. Harden's not prioritizing scoring the basketball, and it appears to be okay. So it does for this series against Toronto. I don't think that's going to work against Miami. I think James Harden will need to be more prolific in the second round, but they still have this first round to deal with, and it seems like it's going to be easier for them.
Michael Wilbon, what did you see yesterday? What did it make you think?
I'm sorry. Was I sitting with you guys yesterday when I told you that Tyrese Maxey was going to be the most important player in a Philadelphia uniform? Did you guys forget that? Look, Maxey is so dynamic, and he does this at both ends of the floor. And I remember thinking early in the season, Ben Simmons can't give you any of what Tyrese Maxey did yesterday with 38. Not at that end of the floor. He can't give you any of that. Now, I'm not going to be a prisoner of the moment. All of us are too old to look at a game one and think that decides a series.
Yes.
You think Nick Nurse and that staff is not going to have adjustments to make? The Scotty Barnes injury does give me concern there because they need him. But this series is going to still take shape. Let's get a little ways down the road before we crown, to quote the late, great Dennis Green. You can crown them. I'm not crowning them yet, but Maxey changes the whole dynamic. He makes James Harden. You have to look at him, if you're Philadelphia management, going forward. If he continues this, you got to look at him in a whole new light. Maxey, he's your important player other than Embiid on that team.
Well, first of all, don't be calling us out in public talking about we much too old. I'm 54 going on 30. That's number one. And by the way, that tie is not something that's worn by somebody in their 50s or 60s. It's somebody that's worn like their 30s or 40s. So you're younger than what you're giving the indication. That's number two. Number three, I love how you accuse us of being a prisoner of the moment. Nobody's a prisoner of the moment more than you, Mike Wilbon. I mean, Mr. Philadelphia, talking about, how many predictions have you made? And then you say, well, you know what? You got me there. I thought it was going to be this way. Come on now. We're looking at Philadelphia.
I'm saying a long series. Stephen A., I'm saying a long series still.
Okay, well, wait a minute. I'm looking at the fact that you got injuries now in Toronto. See, I'm not worried about yesterday's game. It's the injuries. If the bodies ain't available, why shouldn't Embiid with Harden and either Maxey or Tobias Harris be enough against an injury-depleted Toronto Raptors squad? It shouldn't be that tough, considering their situation.
But also, the Raptors aren't tall enough and physical enough. Their goal is to junk up the game, do a lot of switching, get a lot of steals, get out in transition. But Joel Embiid is such an anchor, and he's so dominant drawing double and triple teams. He takes you out of doing all of that.
We've pointed out repeatedly how important it is for the Sixers to win their home games in that series. They'll be without a very important piece, Matisse Thybulle, for the road games in Toronto. Okay, we will take a short time out here, and we're getting ready to go. We got Jaylen Brown. He's ready to go tonight. The Stars are here. He and Jason Tatum each scored 30 in 8 different games this year. What do they have in store for game one of their postseason?
Countdown, presented by Chime.
From Los Angeles with our eyes on Boston, delighted that you are with us. Stephen A. Smith, Jalen Rose, I'm Mike Greenberg. Michael Wilbon will join us in just a moment, and our opening tip is an easy one. It is finally time to put up or shut up for Brooklyn after an up-and-down season and so much talk. You know the stories. Kyrie didn't join them till January, was part-time most of the year before the mandate was lifted in New York City. He's finally playing. Kevin Durant, meanwhile, also missed time in the middle of the season with a sprained MCL. Brooklyn struggled while he was gone. They lost 11 straight in one stretch. And while Durant was out, they made the trade, trending James Harden to the Sixers in exchange for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and draft picks. Simmons remained sidelined, last playing in June of last year. As for the Celtics, they had a slow start to their season. They were under 500 halfway through the year and then bounced back big, finished with a .622 winning percentage, best by any team in history that had a losing record halfway into a season. So the stage is set. Michael Wilbon, as promised, is with us. But Stephen A., I will start with you. Who has more at stake in this series, the Nets or the Celtics?
Well, for me, it's the Brooklyn Nets. I mean, when I look at the Boston Celtics, we know who their young nucleus is. You got a new coach in his first year. You're the #1 defense in the NBA. You're trending upward. If it wasn't for Robert Williams III being injured in this series, I would have picked the Celtics to win it. But I've got the Brooklyn Nets, and let's think about what's at stake here. You've got Kyrie Irving, who's in position to get a 5-year, nearly $250 million contract. That's a hard thing to pull off if you get bounced out in the first round, particularly after missing more than two-thirds of the season, actually, because of things that I would rather not get into on Easter Sunday. You've got a situation right now where you're Kevin Durant. You're going to show up. You're a 2-time champion. We know what to expect from you, but because of Kyrie Irving, because of Ben Simmons, because of the moves that they have made and the decisions that they have to make in the future, it's a lot easier to be more definitive about where you're moving forward if you handle your business